In a world where privilege often speaks louder than respect, one woman's entitled outburst sets the stage for a dramatic downfall. This is the story of Karen Whitmore, a woman used to getting everything she wants, no matter the cost. But when she picks the wrong target in a high-end airport lounge, her arrogance becomes her greatest mistake. Join us as we witness a clash of egos, a moment of truth, and a viral downfall that shows how entitlement can crumble in an instant. This is not just about a spoiled tantrum. It's about the quiet power of humility and composure. The tension was palpable the moment Karen Whitmore stepped into the VIP lounge at the airport. She was the type of woman who carried an air of superiority with every step, her designer suit and carefully crafted persona screaming entitlement. To her, the world was a stage and she was its leading lady. Marcus Elgen, sitting across the room with a soft smile on his face, was the last person she expected to be in the same space. He wasn't dressed in the same overtly rich fashion as her. Yet something about him gave off an undeniable confidence. Little did she know, he was the very man who built the lounge she was so comfortable in. It began, innocently enough, with Karen making a few snide remarks about the lounge. She criticized the layout, the ambiance, and the quality of service, all while speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. She wanted attention. She needed to remind people that she belonged in this elite space, even if she didn't belong in the class of people she thought of as peers. And then, the unthinkable happened. She knocked her coffee onto Marcus's laptop. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Karen said, though her tone didn't match the words. There was no real remorse in her voice, only the need to make the incident seem insignificant. She quickly added, "But honestly, you shouldn't be sitting in first class if you can't even control your own coffee." "What kind of person are you, Marcus?" Sitting with his hands folded calmly, simply raised an eyebrow. He didn't speak at first. The room had gone quiet as Karen's voice grew louder, her demands more insistent. The staff, trained to handle difficult customers, looked nervously between Marcus and Karen, unsure who to placate first. But Marcus wasn't fazed. His calm demeanor only made Karen more furious. "I'm paying for the experience here," she continued, her face turning red. "You're clearly not supposed to be here." Her voice was now so loud it carried across the lounge. The onlookers exchanged uneasy glances. Karen had a reputation for being a high-maintenance, demanding customer, but this was a new level of audacity. She berated the staff and began making the scene even worse, trying to assert her dominance. Karen demanded to speak to the manager. She claimed that Marcus's presence was a violation of the lounge's standards, that he was making the environment uncomfortable, that the lounge was no longer a place for elite clientele if people like him were allowed in. Meanwhile, Marcus remained still, his eyes betraying no sign of anger or frustration. It was as though he had seen it all before. And in truth, he had. He'd spent decades in business, dealing with all kinds of people, none quite as audacious as Karen, but many with similar levels of entitlement. The situation escalated when Karen made her next demand. She wanted Marcus removed. She shouted that his mere presence was ruining the atmosphere. "I've paid thousands for this," she declared, as though money was the ultimate weapon. "I deserve better." Marcus finally stood, his movements deliberate and controlled. He made no effort to match Karen's escalating anger. Instead, he simply spoke. "You may have paid for a lot of things, but that doesn't give you the right to treat people with disrespect," he said, his voice steady. "What you've just done isn't just rude. It's a lack of basic decency." Karen didn't like being called out. She was used to getting away with her tantrums, to manipulating situations to her favor. But something about Marcus's words, calm and unwavering, stopped her in her tracks. The staff shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to react. And then The room became aware of something they hadn't known before, who Marcus really was. With a calmness that contrasted sharply with Karen's hysteria, one of the staff members stepped forward and addressed her. "Ma'am," the staff member began, "we'd like to inform you that the lounge is owned by Mr. Marcus Elgen, the primary investor in this terminal's expansion project. He is the person responsible for this entire space." The words hit Karen like a slap across the face. Her face went from a furious red to an almost pale white as the truth settled in. She had been insulting the very man who had funded the lounge she had been so proud of, the man who had made her privilege possible. For a moment, the room stood still. It was as if time had frozen. The staff, realizing the gravity of the situation, quickly began apologizing to Marcus, offering to escort him to a more private area. Karen, now speechless, stood rooted to the floor, her gaze darting between Marcus and the staff, the lounge's pristine walls and glass windows, which had once seemed like a symbol of her elite status, now felt like a cage. She had trapped herself in her own delusions of superiority. Marcus, undeterred by the tension in the air, looked at Karen. His expression was impassive, but there was a subtle knowing in his eyes. He had dealt with people like her before. The difference was, he had learned to pick his battles carefully, to remain calm in the face of provocation. Karen's outburst, while it seemed powerful in the moment, was nothing compared to the quiet strength he embodied. As Marcus was escorted away to a private suite, Karen was left standing in the middle of the lounge, her self-inflicted humiliation sinking in. The staff continued to apologize, but it was too late for her to recover. Her reputation, built on years of entitlement and manipulation, was now in ruins. Outside the lounge, the story began to spread. The viral nature of social media ensured that Karen's meltdown would not be forgotten. The footage of her trying to humiliate Marcus, only to be exposed as the one in the wrong, was shared and reposted across the internet. Lounge Karen, as the internet had now dubbed her, became an infamous symbol of privilege gone wrong. The media attention was relentless. Karen's social circles, once filled with people who admired her, began to distance themselves. Her reputation was irrevocably tarnished. And Marcus? He remained silent, his dignity intact. He had no need to broadcast his victory. The true satisfaction came not from public recognition, but from the quiet justice that had unfolded. As for Karen, the final lesson was clear: entitlement, no matter how deeply ingrained, could not protect her from the consequences of her actions. No amount of money or status could shield her from the reality that respect, kindness, and humility were the true measures of character. In the end, Karen was left alone in the lounge, with nothing but the empty echoes of her own arrogance. Marcus walked away, his name forever associated with a story of quiet strength and the power of restraint. The lounge, once a symbol of privilege, had become the site of a powerful reminder: true power comes not from money or status, but from the ability to remain composed in the face of adversity. And as for the viral video of Karen's meltdown, it continued to spread. A lesson for anyone who thought they could use their privilege to dominate others. The internet had captured her downfall, and there would be no escaping the repercussions.